Our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast will address tools that are useful for startups and existing businesses. We will also cover other aspects of the launch and growth of entrepreneurial ventures. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden. Well, hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. What about you?
I'm feeling much better than I was last week when I had that terrible cold. That thing knocked me down.
Yeah, I'm glad you're over it. You're at the age where you might not recover from one of these one day, you know?
Oh, it takes longer, I'm telling you. Well, guys, it's probably that comment is very timely with our topic. We want to talk about partnership agreements, and one of the components of a partnership agreement is what happens when one of the partners dies.
Yes, the early demise of one of the partners.
And so a partnership agreement basically spells out all of the interactions and in agreements with two or more people that are starting a venture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely important to put it in writing. There's an old Chinese proverb, I believe it was Confucius, said the faintest of ink is more powerful than the strongest of memories.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
Yeah, in other words, put it on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ryan, I know you have a lot of opinions and experiences with partnership agreements. Would you mind getting into and delving into those?
Yeah, absolutely. So partnership agreements is one of the biggest things I find myself talking about. And before we get into this, in no way are we giving legal advice, just themes of advice that people should take and consider when they're forming partnership agreements.
Absolutely.
So I actually have two very personal experiences with partnership agreements, one that ended very poorly and one that ended very well because of the quality of the partnership agreement. So actually in one of your capstone classes when I was a youngling in college, we had a great business idea put together that formed out of a class, and we were all very serious about pursuing this. Well, without getting into what the actual venture was, it ended up falling apart when people started accepting jobs, and what ended up occurring is I was the only one left that really wanted to pursue this idea. But because it was a class, and we were college students, we took the partnership agreement part of this assessment very not seriously. In fact, I'm fairly certain I took it from another class, wrote different names on it, and submitted it without really looking at it. And that was the collapse of what now, in hindsight, would have been a fantastic business. There's two great examples out there of big-time businesses that were established shortly after we had this idea. So that didn't end well. The second is a couple of companies down the road. I was taking partnership agreements pretty seriously at the time and had to remove my partner from the business that we were operating at an inflection point that was critical to the growth of the business. And because we had a really well outlined partnership agreement, we were able to separate. He was able to be removed from the business in a way that actually maintained our friendship. And I've worked with him at on another consulting gig since then to show you how well that relationship was maintained through a breakup.
Yeah, as you mentioned, in all of my classes when I have student groups, I require that the group write a partnership agreement. And as you and your group did, in most student groups, they treat it like fluff. And they just figured this, I'm not grading it, it's a check mark, and they really write nothing.
Right.
And very often the learning lesson is when there's a problem in the partnership. And in that case, it's usually a very inexpensive lesson because it's a student group project. Yours was an actual business, so it got beyond that. But you learned the hard way about how important a partnership agreement is. So with those listening, I would say there are two ways to learn this. There's the hard way and the easy way.
Right.
I would highly recommend the easy way is to have a partnership agreement addressed. Now, what types of things do you typically see in a partnership agreement, Ryan?
Yeah, so a partnership agreement, as you said, it outlines how the business is going to be interacted with by the partners. So the really big important pieces are, what are the roles and responsibilities? Who's doing what? Who owns what? What happens if something unexpected occurs? You know, we sort of made the joke about a death of one of the partners, but it can be everything from what if they have another job opportunity and want to decrease the time that they're putting in? What if they want to buy more of the business? It's going really well, an outside venture infuses them with capital. What are the possibilities of the relationship between those two people as it pertains to the business?
Yeah, and also I view partnership agreements as an agreement to agree.
Sure.
And if you can't agree at the beginning before you start the partnership, that might be a sign not to go forward.
Yeah. A lot of times with my work at the Entrepreneurship Center, that is the basis of it, is can you guys have a sometimes difficult conversation when things are going really well? When it's really exciting, when you're pumped about the idea, when the business is thriving, can you sit down and have this sort of, needle it out conversation? Because if you can't do it then, there's no chance you're going to do it when things are really tough, when you're executing part of this agreement, or there's a reason to be fine-tooth combing the agreement that you wrote when you first started it. It's going to be much harder then.
Yeah, the partnership agreements are not necessarily until they're necessary.
Right.
It's when things start to fall apart, and it could start off with something minor. So dispute resolution is a critical component. Is what happens is if there is a dispute, how do you handle this, and what is the procedure for doing such, versus trying to discuss while the agreement is going in play. Usually when tempers are a little bit flared is the wrong time to decide how do you handle a dispute. It's up front, as you mentioned, when things are everyone's happy and things are all very optimistic, to decide, okay, if there is a problem, what do we do?
Yeah, and with that, when there is a problem, like what are the punitive measures? What does each one of the members have the capability to do to correct whatever situation's going on? A lot of times I'll read partnership agreements that do have a really great roles and responsibilities section. Each person does know what they're doing and what they should be contributing, whether that's hours or specific jobs that occur. But there's no way to do anything when someone doesn't do that. So it's well thought out, but the negative occurrence side of it hasn't been flushed out whatsoever.
Yeah. Also, there needs to be some component within the agreement, because nothing is stagnant and things aren't written in stone at the beginning. Mm-hmm. How do you implement changes, legitimate changes, say, for example, in roles as the company grows and things morph?
Yeah. It's got to be flexible. It's got to be able to grow with the business. So,
as a final note, it's a fairly simple concept, but it's a very important concept. But I highly recommend that anyone interested in doing this consult with an attorney to have the partnership agreement drafted in a legal format.
Yeah, absolutely. My recommendation is there's lots of great templates online. So use the most complex template you can find online as the conversation starter. Get together, sit down, take it seriously, go through it, outline everything that you can find on this template, and then absolutely get a lawyer to look at it. Make sure the verbiage that you've put down in this informal conversation is legally binding, it's correct. And a lot of lawyers have looked at a lot of these types of things, so get their advice as well. They don't need to be a marriage counselor. I don't think they need to be there for the whole conversation, but definitely have them come in and make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah, definitely. Any final thoughts to wrap up, Ryan?
I would just say do it and take it seriously.
Yeah, there's an old commercial. I'm dating myself yet again. American Express, don't leave home without it. Partnership agreement, don't start a business without it.
I like it. There we go.
You have a great day, Ryan.
Yeah, you as well.
Thanks for listening to our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast with Professor Gary Palin and Ryan Budden. As always, you can head over to ProfSpirit.com to check out more resources and courses designed for you, the entrepreneur. Also, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube to get the most up-to-date information as it is released.